What are you two doing in my first-class cabin? Flight attendant Sarah Mitchell's voice rang out across Transcontinental Airways Flight 447. The scent of leather and privilege hung in the air as she loomed over 16-year-old twins Zara and Maya Williams. These seats cost more than your parents make in a month. Sarah snatched both boarding passes and flicked them with contempt. You stole them, didn't you? There's no way. She let the sentence dangle like a noose. Around them, passengers looked up. The soft rustle of expensive fabrics filled the silence. Maya's hand trembled as she clutched her National Science Fair medal. Zara sat up straight, jaw clenched. I'm calling security right now, Sarah threatened, finger poised over her phone. We don't tolerate freeloaders on this flight. But the twins held a secret that would change everything, and what happened next would be utterly shocking. 6 hours earlier, Maya Williams had leaped for joy in the Chicago Convention Center. The cold marble floors echoed her excitement as she hugged the gold medal hanging from her neck. We actually won! Maya's voice cracked with disbelief. The huge trophy glittered beneath fluorescent lights, engraved with National Science Fair, first prize in physics. Zara smiled, adjusting her identical medal. Dad is going to lose his mind when he sees this. Their physics project on quantum entanglement had defeated teams from 48 states. The conference hall buzzed with congratulations and camera flashes. The smell of victory mingled with industrial carpet and coffee from the vendor booths. Maya's phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Heard the news. So proud of my brilliant girls. A special surprise is waiting for you. 20 minutes later, both their phones rang. First-class tickets, Maya yelled into the phone. Dad, are you serious? David Williams' warm laughter filled the speaker. You've earned it, sweetheart. Both of you. I'm treating my champions properly. But Dad, first class is expensive, Zara objected, ever the practical one. Let me worry about it. I'm stuck in board meetings all day, but you deserve to fly like champions. Maya bounced on her toes. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you. David gently reminded them. Remember what I always say. Treat everyone with respect, because you never know their story. Now get to the airport. Love you both. The line went quiet. 2 hours later, O'Hare Airport pulsed with travelers. The twins rolled their modest suitcases through the terminal, expensive science equipment carefully packed between layers of clothes. Maya clutched the boarding passes like they were precious documents. I still can't believe this, she whispered, staring at the bold print. First class. Zara smiled. Dad works hard. He deserves to spoil us once in a while. Neither girl noticed the understated luxury of their personal gear. Italian leather backpacks, platinum edition laptops, custom-bound physics textbooks. To them, these were merely tools of study, ordinary things in their ordinary lives. At the gate, curious glances followed the teens. 2 young black girls flying first class alone drew attention. Whispered conversations began. Is that a real medal? A kindly older woman asked. Yes, ma'am, Maya beamed. We won the National Science Fair. How wonderful! What was your project? Zara's eyes lit up. A quantum entanglement communication system. We demonstrated that information can be transmitted instantaneously over vast distances using paired particles. The woman blinked, clearly impressed and equally bewildered. 30 minutes later, boarding began. The twins presented their tickets to the gate agent, who scanned them with a professional smile. First class today, ladies. Right this way. The jet bridge smelled of jet fuel and anticipation. Maya squeezed Zara's hand as they reached the aircraft door. Flight attendant Jessica greeted them warmly. Welcome aboard? First time in first? Yes, ma'am. Maya nodded eagerly. You're going to love it. Your seats are just up front, 2A and 2B. They settled into cream leather seats, hands gliding over the smooth armrests. Maya immediately pulled out her phone to text Dad. Boarding now. Thank you again for the surprise. Can't wait to tell you everything about the competition. Dad's reply came quickly. You earned it. I'm proud. I'm in meetings all day, but call if you need anything. Love my champion daughters. Maya held the phone up for Zara, who smiled softly. Dad's the best. Around them, other first-class passengers continued boarding. Business executives in expensive suits, older couples with designer luggage, a young mother with a toddler who immediately began to cry. That was when Sarah Mitchell appeared. She moved through the cabin as if she owned it. Hair in a tight bun, Sarah's eyes swept over each passenger, sorting, judging. When her gaze landed on the twins, her expression changed. Zara noticed instantly. Is everything all right, ma'am? She asked politely. Sarah forced a smile that never reached her eyes. Of course, dear. Just making sure everyone's comfortable. But her tone suggested the opposite. She lingered by their seats longer than necessary, checking and rechecking their area with obvious suspicion. Maya whispered to Zara, Why is she looking at us like that? Ignore her, Zara murmured back. Dad always says some people have their own problems. The sisters didn't realize they were about to become the center of those problems. Engines rumbled to life. Transcontinental Airways Flight 447 pushed back from the gate, carrying two brilliant young women toward a confrontation that would shake an entire industry. 30 minutes after takeoff, the seatbelt sign clicked off. The cabin settled into the easy rhythm of cruising altitude. Maya had just pulled out her phone to take a medal selfie when Sarah Mitchell arrived like a thundercloud. Ladies, I need to see your boarding passes again. Her voice carried through first class, deliberately loud enough for others to hear. The smell of fresh coffee mingled with tension as conversations paused. Zara looked up from her physics book, puzzled. We already showed them at boarding. Young lady, I said I need to see them again, Sarah snapped, hand outstretched, fingers tapping impatiently. Maya fumbled for the passes, hands shaking slightly. Is something wrong? Sarah snatched the documents and held them up to the overhead light like a detective examining evidence. Lips pursed as she scrutinized every detail. These look odd. When exactly were these tickets purchased? Our dad bought them, Zara replied calmly, as a gift to congratulate us for winning the science fair. Sarah's laugh was razor sharp. A gift? First-class tickets are $3,000 each. That's quite a gift for a science fair. The way she said science fair made it sound like a participation ribbon from a local school. Businessman Tom Bradley looked up from his laptop in 1A. Ma'am, their passes were scanned at the gate. Is there a problem? Sarah whirled on him. Sir, please do not interfere with security protocols. Security protocols? Tom's eyebrows rose. They're sitting quietly with valid tickets. Sarah flushed. These young ladies require additional verification. Girls their age don't usually fly first class unaccompanied. We're 16, Maya said softly. We're allowed to fly alone. 16? Sarah's voice brimmed with disbelief. You look much younger. Where is your guardian authorization? Zara pulled out her phone. Here's our confirmation email. Everything is documented. Sarah barely glanced at the screen. Digital confirmations can be faked. I need photo IDs from both of you. The twins exchanged worried looks but complied, presenting their driver's permits. Sarah inspected the IDs with excessive scrutiny, comparing the photos to their faces again and again. These could belong to anyone. How do I know you didn't steal these tickets and IDs? That's ridiculous, Tom Bradley interjected. You're harassing these kids for no reason, ma'am. Sarah's voice rose. I will not tolerate interference with flight safety procedures. Other passengers began to turn their seats. Phones came out discreetly. Cameras captured the escalating confrontation. Mrs. Johnson, an elderly passenger, whispered to her husband, This is getting out of hand. Sarah heard the whisper and spun around. Ma'am, if you have concerns about safety procedures, I can reassign your seat as well. The threat hung in the air like toxic gas. Tears rimmed Maya's eyes. We didn't do anything wrong. We just want to go home. Don't cry to manipulate me, Sarah snapped. I've seen this before, young people trying to scam their way into first class with fake documents. Our documents aren't fake, Zara said evenly, anger under control. Then you won't mind if I verify them with the captain. Sarah's smile turned predatory. Stand up, both of you. Why? Maya asked, voice cracking. Because I said so. Up. Now. The twins reluctantly stood, their science fair medals catching the cabin light. Sarah immediately began inspecting their seats, running her hands over the leather cushions. What are you looking for? Zara asked. Evidence. Contraband. Anything that doesn't belong. Sarah invaded their personal space, rifling through seat pockets and armrests. Tom Bradley stood. This is harassment. You have no right to search their belongings without cause. I have every right to ensure passenger safety, Sarah shot back, tugging the twins' carry-ons from the overhead bin. You can't search our bags, Maya protested. Watch me. Sarah popped the first lock and dumped the contents onto the seat. Physics textbooks, a scientific calculator, and metals spilled across the leather. Look at this. Sarah held up an expensive graphing calculator. This costs $800. Where did you steal this? It's for school, Zara cried. For advanced physics? Sarah's laugh was cruel. Advanced physics? Girls like you don't take advanced physics. The cabin's recycled air filled with the heavy implication of racism. Some passengers gasped audibly. Enough, Tom Bradley said firmly, stepping into the aisle. You've gone way over the line. Sit down, Sarah shouted, her professional mask finally slipping, or I'll have you removed from this flight as well. Young Mother Jessica Lane spoke up from across the aisle. Ma'am, I've recorded the entire exchange. These girls did nothing wrong. Sarah's eyes blazed. Recording is a federal flight safety violation. It's not, Jessica replied calmly, and this is discrimination, plain and simple. More passengers began voicing their support for the twins. The cabin filled with angry murmurs, aimed at Sarah, not the girls. Sarah yanked out her interphone. Captain Rodriguez, we have a situation in first class. I need you up here immediately. Maya tried to call Dad, but the call went straight to voicemail. He's in board meetings, she whispered to Zara, tears running down her face. I know, honey. Zara wrapped an arm around her. He'll call back. Sarah heard. Board meetings? What does your father do? Clean the conference rooms? The insult landed like a physical blow. Maya sobbed harder. You're disgusting, Tom Bradley told Sarah. Absolutely disgusting. That's enough, Sarah yelled. I'll have all three of you removed from this aircraft. Captain Rodriguez finally emerged from the cockpit, face stern and professional. The cabin fell silent except for Maya's quiet sobs. What's the situation, Sarah? Her voice turned suddenly calm and polished. Captain, these two passengers are being disruptive and non-compliant. They presented suspicious documentation and other passengers are interfering with security procedures. The captain looked to the twins, then to Tom Bradley, then to the belongings strewn across the seats. Girls, is this your first time flying? No, sir, Zara answered politely. We fly a few times a year. And these are your tickets? Yes, sir. Our dad bought them as a gift. The captain examined their boarding passes and IDs. Everything appeared in order. He watched Jessica Lane's video, which clearly showed the twins behaving politely and cooperatively throughout the harassment. But Sarah was his crew member. Her actions were his responsibility. I'm sorry, ladies, but we'll need to divert to Denver. Flight safety requires we resolve this on the ground. The cabin erupted. Several passengers stood, voices raised in protest. This is insane, Tom Bradley shouted. They did nothing wrong. You're discriminating against children, Jessica Lane cried. Mrs. Johnson's voice cut through the chaos. Shame on all of you! Shame! But Captain Rodriguez had decided. Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. We'll be landing in Denver in approximately 40 minutes. Maya's phone finally rang. Dad on the screen, but Sarah snatched it away. No phone calls during an emergency landing protocol. she declared with smug satisfaction. The twins sat in stunned silence as the aircraft descended toward Denver. Around them, passengers continued filming and voicing objections. Social media posts began flooding the internet. Transcontinental. Shame trended before they even landed. No one on that plane realized they'd just made the biggest mistake in aviation PR history. They had no idea whose daughters they'd just kicked off. The engines roared as Flight 447 touched down at Denver International Airport, carrying two heartbroken girls toward a reunion that would change everything. Denver's airport felt cold and unwelcoming as airport security officers boarded Flight 447. Their heavy footsteps echoed on the metal floor as they made their way down the aisle in full uniform. The smell of jet fuel and industrial disinfectant flooded the cabin. Zara and Maya Williams. Officer Johnson's voice was professional but firm. His radio crackled with dispatcher chatter. The twins looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Around them, passengers lifted their phones, recording every moment. Camera flashes popped in the dim cabin light. "Yes, sir," Zara whispered. "We need you to come with us, please." Maya squeezed her sister's hand. "Are we in trouble? We didn't do anything wrong." Johnson's expression softened slightly. "Just standard procedure, kiddo. Gather your things." Tom Bradley shot to his feet. "Officer, I witnessed the entire thing. These girls are victims of discrimination. I have video evidence." "Sir, please remain seated," Johnson replied. "You can file a report at the gate." Sarah Mitchell watched from the galley with smug satisfaction, arms crossed as she whispered to another flight attendant, "Told you they were trouble." Captain Rodriguez stepped out of the cockpit, clipboard in hand. "Officer, these passengers were disruptive and failed to comply with crew instructions." "That's a lie," Jessica Lane called, waving her phone. "I recorded everything. They were perfect passengers." The officer glanced around. Nearly every passenger was filming, shouting support for the twins or demanding complaint forms. This was no routine removal. "Ma'am, we'll review all evidence once we deplane," Johnson said diplomatically. Mrs. Johnson reached out to touch Maya's arm as they passed. "Be strong, dear. The truth will come out." Walking the jet bridge felt like a death march. The twins' footsteps echoed in the hollow aluminum tube. Behind them, they could hear passengers demanding explanations, threatening lawsuits, calling for investigations. The Denver International Airport security office smelled of old coffee and fluorescent light. Beige walls were plastered with federal regulations and wanted posters. Maya and Zara sat on uncomfortable plastic chairs while Officer Johnson filled out paperwork. "Can we call our dad now?" Zara asked politely. "One moment. I need some information first." His pen scratched across forms. "Nature of the in-flight disturbance?" Maya's voice wavered. "There wasn't any disturbance. The flight attendant said we couldn't afford the seats. She accused us of stealing the tickets," Zara added. "But we have all the documentation." Johnson looked up from his forms. Something in their calm, precise answers didn't match the disruptive label from the crew. "Do you have that documentation?" Zara produced her phone, showing the confirmation emails, boarding passes, and credit card receipts. Everything was valid and properly logged. Johnson frowned. "These look fine to me. Exactly what did you do that was considered disruptive?" "Nothing," Maya whispered. "We were sitting quietly, reading and texting our dad." Outside the office window, Flight 447 prepared to depart. Passengers reboarded, many stopping to snap photos of the security office where the twins sat. Meanwhile, social media exploded. Videos from the flight flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtag #transcontinentalshame accelerated by the minute. Tom Bradley, at TomBradley1975, posted, "Just witnessed blatant discrimination on at transcontinental air. Two brilliant young women removed for no reason. Video proof attached. This is 2024, not 1964. #transcontinental shame." Jessica Chen, at Jessica Chen OM, shared, "Heartbroken. Watched at Transcontinental Air Crew terrorize two teen girls who won a national science competition. They did nothing wrong. Full video on my page. Hashtag Transcontinental Shame. Another account, elderly but woke, wrote, "Been flying 60 years. Never seen anything this vile. Two beautiful, smart girls humiliated by a racist FA. Boycott at Transcontinental Air forever. At Transcontinental Shame." Back in the security office, Maya's phone finally vibrated. Dad appeared on the screen. Her hands shook as she answered. "Dad!" Her voice broke completely. "Maya, sweetheart, what happened?" David Williams's voice was tight with concern. "I just got out of a meeting and saw the missed calls." Through tears and hiccups, Maya tried to explain. They kicked us off the plane, Dad. They said we didn't belong in first class. They said we stole the tickets." The silence on the line stretched so long Maya thought it had dropped. When David finally spoke, his voice was different, cold, controlled, dangerous. "Put me on speaker, sweetheart, and hand the phone to the person in charge." Officer Johnson reluctantly took the phone. "This is Supervisor Johnson, Denver Airport Security." "Supervisor Johnson, this is David Williams. I need to understand exactly what happened to my daughters." "Sir, the girls were removed from Transcontinental Airways Flight 447 for alleged disruptive behavior." Another long pause. "I will be there in 2 hours. Do not let anyone leave. And Supervisor Johnson, you may want to call your boss. You're going to need him." The line went dead, leaving two crying girls and a suddenly very nervous security supervisor. The office seemed to shrink with every passing minute. Maya twisted a tissue in her hands while Zara rubbed gentle circles on her back to soothe her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps, casting harsh shadows across their tear-streaked faces. Johnson paced near the window, checking his watch every few minutes. Outside, Flight 447 departed 30 minutes late, leaving behind a trail of viral posts and furious passengers. "Dad said 2 hours, Maya whispered, voice hoarse from crying. "He's never broken a promise." Zara squeezed her hand. "He'll come. And when he does, they'll regret everything." "What can he even do?" Maya's shoulders shook. "They humiliated us in front of everyone. The entire internet probably thinks we're criminals." "Dad will handle it," Zara said with quiet certainty. "He always does." Johnson glanced at the twins. Their composure impressed him. In 20 years of airport security, he'd dealt with hundreds of disruptive passengers. These girls fit none of those profiles. His phone rang. "Johnson, Transcontinental Airways Ops. We need the incident report from Flight 447 immediately." "In progress. The passenger's father is on his way." "Their father?" The voice sounded uneasy. "Did he give a name?" "David Williams. He seems serious." Dead silence on the line. "Sir? You still there?" "Do nothing until you hear from us. Understood?" "Nothing." The line clicked off. 1 hour and 47 minutes later, Maya's phone buzzed. "Dad's here." Through the office window, they saw a sleek black car pull into a restricted area. It radiated wealth and authority, gleaming chrome, tinted windows, government plates. A tall black man in an expensive charcoal suit stepped out. Even at a distance, his presence drew every eye. He moved with the ease of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. "Dad!" Maya pressed her face to the glass. David Williams passed through security without slowing. Officers stepped aside automatically, recognizing power when they saw it. The door swung open and suddenly the cramped office felt warm again. David's strong arms wrapped around both girls at once. In that moment, he was only a father with hurt children. "Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you?" His voice was gentle, protective. "We're okay, Dad," Zara whispered into his shoulder. "Just scared." "And ashamed," Maya added, fresh tears spilling. "Everyone was staring. They treated us like criminals." David held them tighter. "That will never happen again," Not ever. After a long moment, he released them and turned to face Officer Johnson. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Supervisor Johnson, I'm David Williams. Johnson's hand trembled as he offered it. Mr. Williams, I understand your daughters were removed from Flight 447 due to alleged disruptive behavior. Alleged? David's voice was surgically sharp. Let me be perfectly clear, Supervisor. My daughters were not disruptive. They are honor students, science fair champions, and two of the most well-behaved young women you will ever meet. Sir, I've reviewed passenger videos and I'm inclined to agree, but the crew lied. David interrupted mildly, but absolutely. They discriminated against my daughters because of their race, and they're about to learn how expensive that mistake is. Johnson shifted uneasily. Mr. Williams, if you'd like to file a complaint with the airline. A complaint? David's eyebrow lifted. Supervisor, I think there's been a misunderstanding about who you're dealing with. He took out his phone and dialed. Richard, it's David. I need a conference call with Transcontinental Airways' entire executive team. Now! Within minutes, Johnson's desk phone rang. This is Airport Director Matthews. We have Transcontinental's CEO, COO, and General Counsel on the line. They're requesting immediate access to speak with you about the Williams situation. Johnson looked bewildered. Why would the CEO want to talk to me about a passenger removal? David stepped forward. Because, Supervisor Johnson, I'm not merely an upset father filing a complaint. He handed Johnson a business card. The weight of the card felt heavy, expensive. David Williams, Chief Executive Officer, Williams Holdings. Johnson stared at the card, then at David's calm, controlled face. Williams Holdings. That's... His complexion drained. The investment firm. That owns 67% of Transcontinental Airways. David finished gently. Correct. The silence was deafening. The twins looked at their father with new understanding. They'd always known he was successful, but watching grown men react to his name was different. Johnson's hand shook as he lifted the receiver. Johnson? Yes, sir. Mr. Williams is here. That David Williams. David took the phone. This is David Williams. I want Sarah Mitchell, Captain Rodriguez, and every supervisor in their chain of command in my Denver office within 1 hour. The voice on the line was panicked, apologetic, desperate. No, David cut off the stammering. I don't want apologies. I want explanations. My daughters were humiliated, discriminated against, and removed from my airline for being young and black. Maya squeezed Zara's hand. The scale of what had happened was sinking in. They hadn't just been kicked off any airline, they'd been kicked off their father's airline. Do you understand what you've done? David continued. You didn't just discriminate against two passengers, you discriminated against the children of your majority shareholder. The irony was brutal. Sarah Mitchell had accused them of not belonging in first class, but their father owned the plane. Furthermore, David's voice went colder. This incident has gone viral. My company's reputation, our company's reputation, is being shredded by your staff's racist conduct. Johnson collapsed into a chair, finally grasping the gravity. David ended the call and turned back to his daughters. His expression softened instantly. Girls, I'll handle this, but first, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Every detail, every word. As they recounted their humiliation, David's jaw tightened. By the end, his eyes held the icy fury of a man who controls billions and is prepared to use every cent to protect his children. Dad, Maya whispered, are you going to fire them? David looked at his daughters, brilliant, accomplished, beautiful young women who'd been treated like criminals because of their skin. Sweetheart, he said softly, firing them is only the beginning. 3 hours later, the executive conference room at Denver International felt like a courtroom. The glossy mahogany table reflected harsh overhead lights as David Williams sat at the head, flanked by two corporate attorneys who'd flown in on the next plane from Chicago. The smell of fear mingled with expensive perfume as Transcontinental's executives filed in. CEO Patricia Hawkins looked ashen. COO Michael Brooks checked his phone nervously. General Counsel Robert Martinez clutched a thick stack of legal documents. Zara and Maya sat quietly in the corner seats, still wearing their National Science Fair medals, watching their father shift from loving dad to formidable corporate strategist. Before we begin, David's voice was cool. Let me be clear. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is an explanation of what will happen next. He pointed to the wall screen, where passenger videos looped. Sarah Mitchell's voice filled the room. These seats cost more than your parents make in a month. CEO Hawkins visibly flinched. Mr. Williams, we are profoundly... Patricia, David cut in sharply. We've known each other 8 years. You've been to my home. You've met my daughters. Hawkins' face crumpled as the realization hit. She had indeed met the twins at company Christmas parties, watched them grow, praised their academic achievements. Oh my God, she whispered. David, I had no idea. That's precisely the problem, David replied coldly. You had no idea because you didn't care who your employees were terrorizing. The door opened. Sarah Mitchell entered still in uniform, now flanked by 2 union reps. Her onboard confidence had evaporated. Behind her, Captain Rodriguez walked in with head bowed, hat in hand. David didn't stand. He didn't need to. His presence filled the room. Ms. Mitchell, he began, voice deadly calm. I want you to meet my daughters, Zara and Maya Williams. Sarah's face drained to bone white. Her knees actually buckled as the impossible clicked into place. Your daughters, she stammered. But they... What, Ms. Mitchell? They're black. They're young. They couldn't possibly be connected to someone important? Maya looked at the woman who'd humiliated her, now shaking with fear. Part of her felt vindicated. Part of her pitied what was coming. David tapped the wall screen. Footage from the plane played. Sarah's voice filled the room, loud and clear. These seats cost more than your parents make in a month. Girls like you don't take advanced physics. I know you stole these tickets and IDs. Each sentence landed like a punch. Sarah's union reps scribbled furiously, realizing their client was beyond salvage. Ms. Mitchell, David continued, explain to me what my daughters did to deserve removal from the aircraft. They... Her voice faltered. I thought their tickets looked... Their tickets were purchased with my American Express Black Card, the same card that has paid your salary for 8 years. David pulled out his phone. Richard, display the transaction record for Flight 447. The screen flashed with the purchase. $6,247.50 for 2 first-class seats billed to Williams Holdings. My daughters didn't steal those tickets. I bought them as a gift because they won the National Science Fair, because they're brilliant young women who make me proud every day. Sarah broke down in tears, mascara streaking her cheeks. David turned to Captain Rodriguez. Captain, you've reviewed passenger statements. You've seen the video. You knew Ms. Mitchell's accusations were false. Why did you still remove my daughters? Rodriguez raised his head slowly. Sir, I trusted my crew member. I exercised judgment based on... Based on what, Captain? Their skin color? No, sir, He stopped, truth dawning. Yes, sir. I suppose... Yes. The admission hung in the air like poison. At least he was honest. Captain, in your 23 years of flying, how many white teenagers have you removed from first class for suspicious tickets? Rodriguez was silent a long time. None, sir. How many black teenagers? This is the first time I've seen... The first time you've seen black teens in first class. I can see why that surprised you. David stood and walked to the window overlooking the tarmac. His daughters could see the tension in his shoulders, the controlled fury in every movement. Patricia, how many discrimination complaints has Ms. Mitchell accrued in 8 years? Hawkins checked her tablet with trembling fingers. 7 formal, 12 informal, all involving passengers of color. And what disciplinary action was taken? Additional sensitivity training? David turned back to the room. 19 complaints. 19 times she terrorized passengers like my daughters. And your response was to send her to a workshop. Ms. Mitchell, David said softly, attention returning to the trembling flight attendant. Do you have children? 2 daughters, she whispered. How old? 14 and 16. David let that settle. Same ages as mine. Would you want someone to treat your daughters the way you treated mine? Sarah's sobs filled the silent room. I'm sorry, she choked. I'm so sorry. You're sorry because you were caught, David corrected. You're sorry because I own this company. You are not sorry for what you did to them. He sat. Ms. Mitchell, your employment with Transcontinental Airways is terminated effective immediately. You will be escorted off the premises. Your final paycheck will include severance as required by the union contract, but you will receive no reference. Your personnel file will reflect termination for discrimination and violation of company values. The union rep began to protest, but David raised a hand. Furthermore, I will personally ensure that every major airline receives a detailed report of this incident. Your career in aviation is over. Sarah collapsed into a chair as the reality of a ruined career seeped in. David turned to Rodriguez. Captain, you showed a shred of integrity by admitting your bias. You are suspended without pay for 6 months. Upon return, you will fly as first officer under probation. You will complete comprehensive bias training, and your performance will be closely monitored. Rodriguez nodded in gratitude. It was more mercy than he expected. Now, David addressed the room. Let's discuss what happens to this company. He brought up a presentation. Charts, graphs, and metrics filled the screen. This incident has cost Transcontinental roughly $12 million in market value over the past 6 hours. Our stock dropped 8%. Hashtag Transcontinental shame is trending globally with 47 million views. Hawkins looked ill. More importantly, David continued, internal audit reveals this is not isolated. Our customer service scores among minority passengers are 37% below industry average. We have a systemic discrimination problem. He clicked to the next slide. Effective immediately, Transcontinental will implement the following changes. The list was sweeping and expensive. A full overhaul of bias education for all customer-facing staff. An independent oversight board for discrimination complaints. An anonymous bias reporting system. Onboard passenger advocates on every flight. Quarterly diversity audits with public results. Partnership with civil rights organizations for ongoing oversight. The annual cost of these reforms is approximately $50 million, David said. I don't care. My daughters will never experience this again. No one's daughters will. Maya felt proud tears rising. Her father wasn't just protecting them, he was protecting everyone. Furthermore, he clicked to the final slide. Transcontinental will establish the Maya and Zara Williams Scholarship Fund with an initial endowment of $10 million. Full-ride university scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing careers in aviation, science, and technology. Maya's mouth fell open. Seeing her name on a scholarship felt surreal. David closed the presentation and looked around. Questions? Silence. Good. Implementation starts tomorrow. Patricia, I want weekly progress reports. Michael, you'll oversee training programs personally. Robert, you'll handle the legal framework for the oversight board. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. And if anyone in this room thinks these changes are optional, remember this. I own 67% of this company. I can implement them, or I can sell to someone who will. Your choice. As the executives filed out in stunned silence, David turned to his daughters. How do you feel? He asked gently. Maya hugged him tight. Proud of you, Dad, but sad it took this to make them care. Zara nodded. What about all the kids without a CEO, Dad? David smiled sadly. That's why we're doing this, sweetheart. So it doesn't matter who your father is. Everyone deserves dignity. Through the window, they watched Sarah Mitchell escorted to the parking garage. Justice, Maya realized, was complicated, both satisfying and painful, but necessary. 6 weeks later, Transcontinental's headquarters buzzed with transformation. The smell of fresh paint and new carpet filled the executive floors as teams installed diversity monitoring systems and redesigned customer service areas. The twins sat in the conference room where their humiliation had been avenged, watching their father address the entire company via video. Hundreds of employee faces filled the wall screens from every airport and crew base nationwide. "Today marks the completion of our comprehensive review," David announced. "The findings are troubling, but the changes are transformative." The investigation revealed a pattern that shocked even veteran executives. 43 documented bias incidents against minority passengers in 2 years, 27 employees with repeated complaints but little meaningful discipline. Ms. Mitchell's termination was only the beginning, David continued. 17 additional employees have been terminated for documented discriminatory patterns. 12 supervisors have been demoted for failing to address known issues. The numbers fell like hammers. Careers ended, lives altered, the price of decades of systemic bias finally paid. "Captain Rodriguez has completed his suspension and bias training," David noted. "He'll return next month as a probationary first officer. His sincere remorse and commitment to change earned him a second chance others did not receive." Rodriguez appeared on screen from the training center, his face reflecting 6 months of deep reflection. "I allowed unconscious bias to override my judgment in training," he said quietly. "I failed those young women in this company. I'm grateful for the chance to do better." "Our new policies are fully operational," David said. "Every flight now includes a trained passenger advocate. The anonymous bias reporting system generated 47 reports in 6 weeks, allowing us to address issues before they escalate." The transformation was measurable and impressive. Minority passenger satisfaction scores up 68%. Social media sentiment fully reversed. Transcontinental change trending with stories of respectful, dignified service. "Our training is now mandatory for all customer-facing staff," David continued. "This isn't sensitivity training. It's education on unconscious bias, de-escalation, and the business cost of discrimination. 2 weeks of intensive coursework, quarterly refreshers, real-world role plays, and testing with meaningful consequences. The Independent Oversight Board is operational," David added, "chaired by Dr. Keisha Washington of the Civil Rights Institute. The board has full authority to investigate bias complaints and recommend discipline." Dr. Washington appeared on screen, her presence commanding respect. "We processed 31 complaints in the first month," she reported. 23 resolved through mediation and additional training. 8 resulted in formal discipline. None were dismissed as frivolous. The message was clear. Complaints would be taken seriously and acted upon quickly. The Maya and Zara Williams Scholarship Fund has received over 3,000 applications, David said proudly. "Our first cohort of 50 scholars begins university this fall, pursuing aviation, engineering, physics, and computer science." Maya felt her eyes sting as photos of recipients filled the screen. Young faces of every ethnicity, all chasing dreams that once seemed impossible. "Industry response has been unprecedented," David continued. 6 major airlines have adopted similar oversight programs. The FAA is considering mandatory bias education for all carriers. One incident of discrimination had sparked systemic industry change. The ripple effects kept spreading. Business schools now taught the Transcontinental case study. Civil rights organizations praised the company's transparency. The stock not only recovered but hit an all-time high as investors recognized the value of inclusive practice. "But the most important measure of success," David said, voice softening, "is this. In 6 weeks under our new policies, we have received 0 discrimination complaints. 0. That means every passenger, regardless of age, race, or background, is being treated with dignity and respect." The silence across the video call was profound as thousands of employees absorbed the magnitude of what they'd achieved. "To my daughters, Maya and Zara, David concluded, looking straight at them. You turned pain into purpose. You turned injustice into industry reform. I'm proud of your courage, and proud that your names will help other young people reach their dreams. The twins rose and joined their father, 3 people who changed an industry because they refused to accept discrimination as just the way things are. Outside, transcontinental jets prepared to depart, now carrying passengers who could fly with dignity no matter who they were or who their father might be. Justice wasn't just done. It was institutionalized. 3 months later, Maya and Zara Williams stepped off the jet bridge of Transcontinental Flight 891, returning from a speaking engagement at Harvard. The familiar scent of jet fuel and recirculated air stirred memories, but everything felt different now. Welcome aboard, ladies. Flight attendant Marcus Thompson greeted them with genuine warmth. His smile reached his eyes as he checked their boarding passes. First class today. This way. The sisters exchanged a look. This is how it should be. Simple, respectful, human. Seated in 2A and 2B, Maya noticed a small plaque near the galley. Transcontinental Airways, dignity for every passenger. Beneath it, a passenger advocate pin gleamed on the uniform of flight attendant Sarah Kim. First time flying with us? Sarah Kim asked politely, genuinely interested. Actually, no, Zara smiled. We've flown transcontinental before. They didn't mention that the previous flight had changed everything. In flight, Maya opened her laptop to review scholarship applications. 50 more students would receive full ride funding next term. Photos showed young faces from every background. Future pilots, engineers, doctors, and teachers who would never again face barriers that once felt insurmountable. Look at this one, Maya said, showing Zara an application from a 17-year-old in Mississippi. She wants to be an aerospace engineer. Her essay about overcoming discrimination gave me chills. Zara read over her sister's shoulder. She reminds me of us. She reminds me of who we might have been if Dad weren't a CEO, Maya replied softly. That truth lingered. Their dignity had been restored not because they deserved it more, but because their father owned the company. How many others had faced humiliation with no powerful parent to call? That was why the scholarship mattered. That was why the industry changes mattered. That was why the campus talks and conferences mattered. 3 hours later, they landed at LAX. As they walked through the terminal, Maya's phone buzzed with a news alert. United Airlines announces comprehensive bias training modeled on Transcontinental's program. Another airline. Another step. Thousands more passengers would be treated with dignity. The ripple kept widening. What began as a father's fury over his daughter's mistreatment had become a movement reshaping an entire industry. But the most important change wasn't corporate policy or training modules. It was the quiet confidence in young people's voices as they shared their stories at talks around the country. We learned that justice isn't automatic, Zara had told the Harvard audience. It requires people with power to use it responsibly. Our dad could have cut a check and kept quiet, Maya added. Instead, he chose to be the last CEO his daughters would ever have to face discrimination from. That's what real privilege looks like, using your advantages to dismantle the barriers that hurt others. Walking toward their father's waiting car at LAX, Maya reflected on what had changed in 6 months. Sarah Mitchell's career was over. Captain Rodriguez was rebuilding his reputation as a reformed advocate for equality. An entire industry was learning to see passengers as people first. Most importantly, thousands of young travelers now flew with dignity, not because of who their parents were, but because discrimination was no longer tolerated. Zara and Maya Williams had been removed from a plane for no reason. Their response broke the system that allowed it. Their real victory wasn't revenge. It was ensuring no other child would face what they had. One phone call changed everything. What happened after the call mattered most.